Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome to the... Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to a place where I just spray painted something, and now it's sitting about 10 feet away. How you doing? Welcome back to another installment in the series we call Breakdowns, and we're kind of trying to go semi-chronologically, like starting from the eldest members of the fleet. We've broken loose of it a couple times, but I think we're still in the original dozen. So definitely worthy of the original mention in the original dozen is something of a shambling assemblage of mismatched bits and bobs is our man Zoidberg, who is big. Zoidberg is really big. Zoidberg sits before you fitted with a J-Concepts bar body, which is for short course. He sports that body because at the time of his construction, and he's on his 5th chassis that he's ever been on, at the time of his construction, the 1.9 rupture was absolutely unobtainium. And I wanted to test a set of 1.9 ruptures. I wanted to see what all the hullabaloo was about. A-Main happened to have 2.2 ruptures. I didn't know. I didn't even know. I was very new to crawling at that time. I didn't know that a tire of this size and girth was something that existed. This, for frame of reference, is a 1.9 Baja Pro X. The full size 575 rupture is massive in all regards. I got them, I had them, and rather than one of the usual modes here of building to a body, I basically built to a tire. So he did indeed begin as a Capra kit back at the time when you could purchase a Capra kit for about $250. And I drove the Capra and I was like, wow, this is pretty good. And then familiarity bred contempt. I don't like the Capra in its original form. I think the Capra, as it's laid out, needs to either be much longer or sit atop a straight axle. With that low roll center, with those links pinched together like that, on the portals at that length, it's a whippy, snappy, flippy, floppy sort of affair. Zoidberg has made every effort to get away from that. So, we needed big. We needed to build big in order to get clearance for 575 ruptures. We had the idea in our head to run a 2-low gearbox because it's pretty easy then to get the underdrive overdrive split you want, because it's 30% fed to the back. You can either then put an overdrive in the rear or an underdrive in the front, get you out there around 20%. And it is definitely early on in my learning processes for 4-wheel steer. He has that thing that I tell people to watch out for all the time. Zoidberg presents an absolute capacity of scale. It has nothing indicative of the capability of the platform. He's really, really big. He is... We really need to set him flat because his wheelbase gets pretty dynamic because he's so long. Desert Lizards of the big, long variety. He has a 350 millimeter wheelbase. He's pretty long. He is all down the middle. And features donations to the Canyon, super shafty axle shafts from a gentleman who was formerly local and now lives in Utah, who at the time that super shafty had just come out with offsets. And he had a 4-wheel steer rig and went to the double offset and said, hey, do you want these? And I was like, okay. And they went on here because Zoidberg had broken a number of plastic Capra housings previously. Unsurprisingly, he features, as I said, we've done a number of chassis for him. This is the 3rd or 4th one, and it just almost features enough clearance for the too low, which to fit it in here, oh boy. So we've got a flat skid, and it's not a full Capra skid, right? These links aren't touching in the center. So our roll center is moved up a little bit. He does not sport any manner of link risering because he is four-wheel steer, and with the placement, there's no BTA option the way the servo is. I mean, you could do like the Rhino thing with, anyway, we choose to drive around it instead. Pair of NSDRC RS500Bs. The too low gearbox is angled on a kick to kick it back that way, and moved over to one side. So there is a wedge between the skid and the gearbox to move that gearbox on all three axes. It's moved X, Y, and Z. The too low is really annoying in that it fits a select number of things. I believe it was particularly designed for something. Not 100% sure what that thing it was designed for, but getting it into a normal place, like, can you see the carve out on the rail right there? I mean, at this point, he's been on this 9i mod 3542 forever. Nowadays, we could easily put a Rhino, even an S12 Rhino in there would be more than enough. I would probably go with an S20, and that S20 would end like right there, and then we wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. But he is definitely in the state of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. He was definitely on a different gearbox in these rails, because I noticed this right here. I don't know what that was specifically meant to clear, but it was definitely meant to clear something. And then once this set of rails got built, like, I feel like there was a different gearbox in these rails when these rails were originally laid down, and then we went to the too low. Absolutely no recollection. But as you can tell, once these rails were basically built to accommodate this body, we have one body mounting option, and it is for this. This body features things that I am somewhat slightly proud of, which is I used some very, very old pinstriping tape, which is why we didn't get anything remotely close to perfect lines. But it is a fade, purple to green. We got the ombre on there. And I heat rolled the body to get those sides to tuck in. And when I did it, I didn't ruin it. So look at that. I don't know precisely what my thought process was with the back roller, because he can get, like, there's your approach. Like, approach and departure are not a problem. He has the articulation one would expect from a 350 millimeter wheelbase and nearly 6-inch tall tires. He's got 7 inches, 7.25 in the back, and right about just a hair under 7 inches in the front. Why is that, do you ask? Well, because we eschewed the Capra status and we went longer in the rear and slightly shorter in the front. I think he's only in the 10 millimeter or so. Yeah, maybe even less, 7-8 millimeters. Yeah, you can see there's a bit more up travel in the front. Very early on, would I do it exactly this way again? Certainly not. I would build something to fit a too low more specifically, or just put an OD3 in it. The OD3 was not, the fake OD3s were not a thing at the time. He's changed wheels 3, 4, 5 times. These are a hodgepodge of parts. I believe they're Hobby Parks. And then I wanted scale hardware and blue rings, and none of the parts particularly lined up all the way. These are things I definitely remember having to basically re-drill out every hole for the scale hardware just to get it to where the rings would fit, because they didn't quite line up with the other cheap aftermarket rings that you could buy. He doesn't run the biggest, heaviest knucklies in the front. He makes up for that instead. 7 or 8. 7. He makes up for that instead. This is just normal Amazon, Injora, Benedict Harry. He makes up for that in the front with the big 23 millimeter adapters, and they don't even really feel that heavy. That is the stock foam. He's one of my favorite types of things, because you see this, and then when you see it with something to compare it to relatively, you go, oh my God, it's humongous. And he borders on humongous, but is sub 7 pounds. So he kind of tricks you. And it does support the tail of the body and the back. You can tell those were made to accommodate each other. I was going to do it all as one piece, and then I was like, I don't wanna. So we just made some little pieces to connect together. It always looks like a split, but it's like, it's a scuff. He is, I have to say, and also I think this is the 3rd or 4th bumper that I ever welded. Another of my single hole efforts before I definitely told myself, stop making bumpers that only attach with a single hole. Make a tab and drill holes in it, or attach a tab to the flat bar and then weld your... Anyway, I feel like I've learned some things since he was laid down. He's a guy, and he's really big, and he has that capacity of scale where he's big and he can go places and do things, but he kind of falls into this weird nether space, fleet-wise, I mean, because when you're out on the course outside, say you want to run through some gates, well, outside tire to outside of tire, he's 310 millimeters wide. You're going to have a real hard time getting through the 380 millimeter gates. You don't have a lot of space on either side. He still does, because we can't really get into that geometry stuff. You know, everything's a compromise. So we can't get enough link separation at the axle side, and increasing the link separation at the chassis side isn't going to accomplish what we need for a tire this tall. It's laid out. That axle is pretty much set up for a tire that's shorter than this one. So he does have a tendency to get a little whippy-tippy. He'll throw a hand in the air. He still bears in him, particularly because of the axles that he's fitted with, which are center pumpkin Capras. He has that tendency to put one in the air and wave around. But something of a driver's rig, I will go so far to say. You have a surplus of traction. You have all of the stability brought about by being this wide, where that kind of articulation doesn't mean anything to Zoidberg. You've got a Capra axle that has a pretty good steering angle, and then you can do it twice. And I have always mentioned in the past, at full lock this way, his wheelbase is 290. So he drops 60 millimeters, and then at full lock this way, his wheelbase is, well, what do you know? It's 410. It picks up those 60 millimeters. So if you're going up a hill and you four-wheel steer this way, yeah, you're really stable on this side with your 410 millimeter wheelbase. His name, where did his name come from? When I was first making my forays into four-wheel steer and had not graduated to all manual, no mixing, always manual control over the rear wheels, and I was using I want to say a FlySky GT5 at the time, and it had the four-wheel steer mix, and you could blip through the functions. When you get to crab like that, when you whip the steering wheel, he goes whoop, 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 whoop. He does the John Zoidberg, so he was named just because of that. Zoidberg. Zoidberg was the first four-wheel steer rig in the fleet. I think he'd have to vie with Blue Sky High. I would have to go all the way back into the archives, and I don't know. Documentation of stuff was not as good as it has become as of recent. I've moved more into a mode of, well, we're doing it, we might as well record it. And at that time, not so much. One of these sets of desert lizards, there are probably half a dozen, 6, 7 sets, maybe 8 sets in service in the fleet, and I routinely forget where they are because the desert lizard, despite denigrating terms said by some others, the desert lizard is very nearly set it and forget it. His were filled some years ago and have not been touched since. Desert lizard for running half droop or full droop, we do the... They're really pretty good. They have some little fiddly bits with the mountings. How did I treat the bottoms? I found some kind of a ball that fits through the lizard. I don't know what I did. It's been too long for me to tell you. I do apologize. Zoidberg was once a Capra, and now via Capra axles, no, we'll just stick with that. Zoidberg was once a Capra. What is he now? His canyon rails and canyon links and canyon geometry with a canyon bumper and all the little bits and bobs and pieces all thrown together to get him where he is. And he is ever closer to his final form because, honestly, as we get further forward in time, the desire to pull these rails, start cutting new stuff, to maybe hope to squeeze a little more performance out of it. Instead, we would just take what we've learned, employ new parts, and try to build a better Zoidberg. That's we're always moving forward. Be a shark, always moving forward. So Zoidberg was as much of a learning experience to me as Blue Sky High, as Daphne, as the gentleman who is now Jolly Green, as all of these rigs where we came to learn what to do and what not to do, and sort of how to do things either better or quicker or more efficiently or what have you. He was an iterative process, and I'm entirely happy with how he is as he sits. A learning experience, and if you're not learning, you're just sitting still. So take every... I'm doing that thing where I put stuff away. Take every learning experience as precious and use it. We learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. And there were definitely more failures involved into getting him where he is now than there were successes. We fail our way along until we figure out how to stop failing quite so much. I do think it is definitely not a failure that you're here today in the canyon with us together. I thank you so much for being here. I invite you to tune into whatever happens to come up next. In between now and that inevitable time, I pray that it is inevitable. I hope that you want to all do your very best. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you again here at the Canyon. Again, for the algorithm, consider Canyon membership. Apparently they feed you into the things more. I watch the analytics every day. I'm waiting to see it. I'm waiting to see you. And we'll see you in the next one.